and we're just we're still admitting a few people into the meeting, so just give us another 30 seconds or a minute, and we'll get started today. We've got a great presentation on hand. Okay, looks like we've got a good group here today. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Greg Amzels. I am the interim president of the I-94 West Chamber of Commerce, and thank you for your membership with the Chamber, and thank you for joining us here today. We've got a great 1-hour webinar with my good friend Bob Schlichte, as well as my friend Sarah Becker, my good friend Sarah Becker. We've got a number of things to talk about today that are going to be relevant to your business. We're excited about that. Before we get into the program, I just want to make a couple of chamber announcements and updates. We've got a chamber barbecue that we're going to be announcing here in the next couple of weeks, kind of a member appreciation drive-through style barbecue. So we're going to have some fun things happening in the next 30 days, so stay tuned for that announcement, as well as our golf tournament, which we moved from July into September, Tuesday, September 29th, so mark your calendar for that as well. So having said that, I want to introduce, as I mentioned, Sarah Becker is going to present second here today. Sarah's our process ninja with clear, simple business solutions. So stay tuned for Sarah. First time I'm going to introduce the shipbuilder, Bob Schlichte, from formerly of Mille Lacs Lakes Corporate Ventures. Bob's been a great supporter of the Chamber over the past several years. Excited to have him here today. If you haven't heard his speech, he's going to give a little bit of an abbreviated version of his 1-hour speech, but still very impactful, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that. A little bit more about Bob. He's a I want to call him a scratch golfer, just to get on his good side. But if you ever need a guy to help you in your foursome, Bob's the guy to call for that. A lot of great things happening with the Chamber. We're excited to have Bob here today, Sarah here today. With that, I'm going to introduce Mr. Bob Schlichte. Bob.
I have a confession to make. I am scared to death. You see, I'm an introvert, and getting in front of a group of people, doesn't matter the size, large or small, or in this case, a Zoom presentation, something that I've never ever done before. Now, most people that know me don't think of me as an introvert, because I've been able to develop the techniques that allow me to overcome my insecurities. Now, if I haven't convinced you that, just watch me dance around the day. I'm not going to be standing still very often. Have you ever done something so far outside your comfort zone, only to ask yourself, what was I thinking? I have a question for you today. What was I thinking? The first time that I stepped outside my comfort zone was in the 1970s, 1980s. I worked for a travel wholesaler out of St. Paul, Minnesota at the time. It was my job to sell airplanes and airplane seats. I'd been on the job for about a year. One day my boss came to me and said, Bob, I would like you to fly to Las Vegas. I would like you to fly to Las Vegas and meet with casino and hotel executives and buy hotel rooms. Well, that was way outside my comfort zone. I'd been to Vegas just one time, and that was as a tourist. Now he wants me to meet with casino and hotel executives. So I said to him, why me? Why would I need to do that? I'm a salesman. I'm not a buyer. And he said, well, buying is just like selling. You can do it. So I had a job. Then he throws this at me. I'd like you to buy rooms for $10 a night. a night, what kind of flea bag hotel am I going to get for $10 a night? Now, as ridiculous as that sounds, back in the day, what casino and hotel executives knew that if a gamer came into town and spent the night at their hotel, 90% of their casino playing would happen at their casino hotel. So they were willing to give up a hotel room rate to get the gamer. So I'm off to Las Vegas. I fly to Vegas, I rent a car. I decide I'm going to drive around town a little bit, get to know the town a little bit. And as I'm driving around town, I run across a property called the Landmark. Now, it truly was a landmark. If you've ever seen any old-time movies or any old-time TV shows that were filmed in Las Vegas, you would have seen the Landmark. Now, it's no longer there. It was imploded a few years ago. But it was about 4 blocks off the strip. So I'm thinking there was any property that's going to give me a $10 room rate, it's going to be one that's off the strip. So I pull in the parking lot, park my car, I walk in, I ask for the sales manager. I'll watch this really young guy. Let's call him Bill. His name was Bill, so that worked. Bill and I sit down over a cup of coffee, and I quickly realized that Bill knew a lot about our company. You see, we've been selling Vegas out of the Midwest for a few years, and every casino wanted a piece of our business. So when I asked Bill for a $10 room rate, he said, sure. I said, really? He said, yeah, how many do you want? Well, how many will you sell us? We go back and forth. We set on a number. It was the beginning of a friendship, relationship, and partnership established with Bill. Now, the reason we wanted a $10 room rate, there were 5 wholesalers in the Twin Cities at the time, and we all bought our air at approximately the same price. So to differentiate our package price from our competitors, we needed a low room rate. As it turns out, we were $20 cheaper than the next nearest competitor. The phones were ringing off the hook, and all we really wanted was that first phone call. We thought we could upsell them, get them to a better property. But they wanted the Landmark. It was going crazy. I was making Bill a hero. A couple years later, I get a call from Bill, and he says, I'm leaving the Landmark. I'm going to a property called the Flamingo Capri. Will you follow me there? Now, for us, the Flamingo Capri, it was on the strip, sat right next door to the Flamingo Hilton. It was an upgrade. I said, sure. I followed Bill there, bought a whole bunch of rooms. We sold a whole bunch of rooms. Our friendship, relationship, and partnership continued to grow. A couple years later, I get another call from Bill. Bill says, I'm leaving the Flamingo Capri. I'm going next door to the Flamingo Hilton. Would you follow me there? And of course I did. Followed Bill to the Flamingo Hilton. We bought a whole bunch of rooms. We sold a whole bunch of rooms. Our friendship, relationship, and partnership continued to grow. A couple years later, I get another call from Bill. Apparently, Bill can't hold a job. Actually, he can. It was his way of progressing up the chain, the job chain, getting better jobs all the time. Bought a whole bunch of rooms. Bill, we sold a whole bunch of rooms. Our friendship, relationship, and partnership continued to flourish until about 1990. In 1990, 2 events happened. The first event was the first Gulf War. Now, if you know anything about turmoil in the world, people just don't like to get on airplanes when there's turmoil. The second thing that was happening that year is we had our most mild winter we had ever had. Minnesotans are hardy. They don't need to leave the state when it's a mild winter. Our business was going down the tube. It didn't look like we were going to survive. One day, my boss comes to me and says, Bob, I need you to fly to Las Vegas. I said, what for this time? I need you to fly to Las Vegas and with the 15 hotels we're currently doing business with, tell them the $200,000 we owe them for rooms already used. We can't pay them. $200,000. Now, today's money, that's a lot of money. Back then, it was an enormous amount of money. I said to my boss, why me? Why do I have to go out and deliver that horrible, horrible news? He said, it's simple. You've built these friendships, relationships, and partnerships up over the course of 10 years. They'll understand. I'm not so sure. I've seen the movie. I've seen The Godfather. I know what they do to people that take advantage of them. I know what they do to people that take money from them. I was absolutely scared to death. I was so scared. I decided I was going to fly out in one of our charters. I wasn't going to fly out in Schedule Air. I just kind of felt like I had a little more control of my destiny flying out on one of our charters. But I was so scared, I decided I wasn't going to get a hotel room. I was going to drive to LA every night and stay there, drive back. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking the likelihood of somebody bringing a horse head all the way to LA is pretty remote. So I fly into Vegas, I rent a car. I decided I'm going to get the worst out of the way first. I'm going to go meet with Bill. I drive the Mirage, park my car, I walk into Bill's office, I sit down at his desk. A couple of minutes later, Bill walks in, he sits down at his desk. I look him square in the eye. I said, Bill, we've got a problem. We owe you close to $90,000, and we can't pay you. The silence in the room was deafening. So he looks down at his desk, and he looks up at me, and he says, where are you staying tonight? Where am I staying tonight? What kind of question was that? He called me so upset with that question. I said, Bill, I just assumed I'd be sleeping in the desert. He said, you're staying here tonight. I said, no, I can't do that. He insisted I stay there. Now, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, he wants me there. It'd be so much easier for him to bring a horse head into his own hotel than somebody else's. I finally relented and said, okay, I'll stay there. He said, go out and meet with your other hotels. I know you have a few. Come back. We'll have a room waiting for you. I went and met with 2, maybe 3 more hotels. I got back about 5:30, 6 o'clock. I'm exhausted. The toughest day of my life. These are people that built friendships, relationships, partnerships up over the course of 10 years. Now I got to go tell them I can't pay them. I got back about 5:30, 6 o'clock. I go up to the front desk to get registered. Give the lady my name, and she slides me a card key. I mean, that's kind of got 5 stars on it. Then she directs me over to a single elevator over here. There's a whole bank of elevators over here, but she wants me to go that way. It's just weirder and weirder all the time. So I go over to the single elevator. There's the security guard. He wants to see my card key. So I show it to him. He opens up the door. I get in the elevator. It shoots me straight up. It shoots me straight up to the penthouse of the Mirage. The most beautiful room I'd ever seen. It was bigger than the house that I was raised in. I couldn't believe it. What was Bill doing? Bill was taking care of me. We built this friendship, relationship, and partnership over the course of 10 years. He knew how hard it was for me. He was taking care of me. And that's what we do when times are tough. Our friendships, our relationships, and partnerships help us get through pandemics, help us get through some of the issues that we have in life. Not only did Bill count me 4 days, 3 nights in the penthouse of the Mirage, he count all my food and all my drink. I got to tell you what, I needed a lot of drink. Now, we've all had big wins in our life, and I'm willing to bet that those big wins are a result of friendships, relationships, and partnerships established. I've studied many successful salespeople and many successful business people, and one common thread that I find among all of them is their ability to build friendships, relationships, and long-term partnerships. I build ships, but not one of my ships float. I don't even like the water. My ships soar. My ships flourish. Building ships has been one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done in my life. I build ships. I build friendships, relationships, partnerships, and sponsorships. You build ships. Is building ships part of what you do in your job or your everyday life? Sometimes when we build ships, we need to step outside our comfort zone, push ourselves, challenge ourselves beyond our comfort level. Change happens outside our comfort level. When that change happens, there is absolutely nothing better. Many people ask me, why do you do it? Why do you go out and publicly speak if it's so scary for you? There's really 2 reasons. The first reason, I liken it to the days that I ran. I ran for 25 years. I ran 2 marathons, several half marathons. And I can honestly tell you, in that 25 years, there was not one time did I enjoy the run. What I did enjoy is when I got done. The physical, the mental, the spiritual, and emotional lift I got from a strenuous workout, that was absolutely nothing better. I can make one guarantee today. In about an hour's time, there's not going to be anybody in this room or this Zoom going to feel as good as me. Well, the second reason I do is for my kids. I have 3 kids. They're adults. I think it's critical to show them the importance of building face-to-face relationships and have face-to-face conversations 6 feet away, of course. In today's world, with all the technology, we are losing our ability to have face-to-face conversations and face-to-face relationships. We can't even get dates anymore without technology. I'm going to talk a little bit about building ships today. And when you build ships, you need to have a solid foundation. A solid foundation when building ships consists of hard work, trust, respect, goals, and passion. With a solid foundation, your ship will move forward and stand the test of time. Without a solid foundation, your ship may not move forward. It may even sink long before it leaves port. Hard work. Nothing happens without hard work. You see, there are no secrets for success, so don't waste time looking for it. Success is a result of perfection, hard work, learning from our mistakes, loyalty to those whom we serve, and persistence. Once again, nothing happens without hard work. Another component to a solid foundation is trust. Trust is the ultimate human foundation for deep, soulful living. Without it, we are rudderless boats in a sea of indecisions. You ever worked with someone you didn't trust? It's a miserable feeling. It's an absolute waste of time. I used to work with this individual who happened to work with one of the Minnesota pro sports teams. I worked with him for about 10 years. Now, I'm not going to mention the team, but, well, they probably won't make Super Bowl again. Anyway, I worked with this individual for 10 years. I loved working. We had a good time. We laughed, we cried. We always had a good time, but I never trusted him. And I hated that. Every single conversation I had with him, it was on the phone or face-to-face. I followed up with an email recapping everything we talked about. Trust is such an important component to a solid foundation. If it's not part of your component, somehow, some way, you got to make it. And if you don't believe me, look at what's happened to Wells Fargo the last couple of years. Wells Fargo broke the trust of some of their customers, and now they're trying to earn it back. It's costing them millions of dollars to do that. It's hard enough to build the trust and to keep it, but to build it, lose it, and then try and earn it back, it's very, very difficult. So trust is a very important component to a solid foundation. One of my favorite quotes comes from Zig Ziglar. It goes something like this: if people like you, they'll listen to you. If people trust you, they'll do business with you. Let me repeat that. If people trust you, they'll do business with you. Another component to a solid foundation is respect. Respect for ourselves guides our morals. Respect for others guides our manners. Do you like the people you work with? Do you like the people you work for? You don't have to like them, but you have to show them respect. You have to give them respect. If you don't show them and give them respect, you're not going to get respect in return. So show them the respect that they deserve. There's a couple ways you can do that. One way is, most of us have voicemail. Leave a voicemail every single day. Give the date and where you're at. If you're out of the office all day, let them know that. What are you doing? You're showing them respect. They don't have to call you 3, 4, 5 more times throughout the day wondering why the heck you're not calling them back. You're not calling them back because you're out of the office. And if you leave a very clear voicemail, they know that. And if they trust you, they know you're going to call them back the first time you're back in the office. So show them a little respect. Something else you can do, and you're not going to like this one, but answer all of your emails. I'm not talking about the junk emails. I'm talking about any email that might pertain to business sometime in the future. Earlier, I was talking about our reliance on technology. If you don't want to have that face-to-face relationship or that face-to-face conversation, at least do the emails right. Answer them as quickly as you can. That may be as simple as, no thanks, not today, not interested. But at least they know you got the email and you're showing them the respect that they deserve. Another component to a solid foundation consists of goals. Goals turn the invisible into the visible. Goals propel you forward. Goals transform insurmountable hills into walkable hills. Insurmountable mountains into walkable hills. Sorry about that. And goals help us believe in ourselves. And that's what goals Ever since we were little kids, our parents told us the importance of goals, and our teachers, and our boss. How do you know where you're going if you don't have a goal? Better yet, how do you know if you've arrived if you don't have a goal? If it's important for you, you need to have a goal. I had a goal today. My goal was to get through this Zoom presentation without passing out. I think I'm going to make it. I'm the first to understand how tough it is to set goals. Experts will tell you, use reflective thinking when you set goals. And what I mean by that is look at the goals you set last year. Now, experts will also tell us if you set goals for a year, what you tend to do is you set way too many. There's no possible way you can accomplish them all. Use reflective thinking and see how you did last year. If you reached the goals, were they smart goals? Were they effective goals? You'll be better at setting goals. Now, experts will say if you don't do that, do it for 3 years. Then what happens? You don't set near enough. But once again, you set realistic goals. If you use reflective thinking in setting them, it's going to work a whole lot better for you. Now, the last component to a solid foundation, by far my favorite, passion. When work, commitment, and pleasure all become one, and you reach that deep well where passion lives, nothing is impossible. Let me repeat that. Nothing is impossible. I worked for Grand Casino for 29 years, best 29 years of my life. Very, very good company. When I first started with them, I wasn't sure it was the right place to work. But what I did is I found something in my job that I really liked, something I could get passionate about. Because I am a believer that passion will grow, but you need to nurture that passion. You like driving to work in the morning? You look forward to going to work? I did. I loved every bit of my job. A couple years ago, I was at a St. Paul Chamber annual dinner. There was about 700 people, and the chamber chair, a gentleman by the name of Tom Whaley, got up to speak. His boss, Michael Beck, was in the audience. Tom Whaley was the general manager of the St. Paul Saints. Tom gets up and he says, I've been employed by the St. Paul Saints for 25 years, and I haven't worked a day. How do you say that? How do you say that with your boss in the audience? See, his boss knew what he was saying. He loved his job so much, it wasn't work. My wife was sitting next to me, elbows me, and said, you haven't worked for 27 years. She's absolutely right. You love what you do, it's not work. Love what you do. Do what you love. Now, when I started this presentation, I talked about my trip to Las Vegas. But about 4 months prior to that, I got a phone call from an individual that identified himself as Jack. Jack was the vice president of marketing for an Indian casino. He calls me up and he says, we want to put together a play and stay program, and we need a company to be our reservation center. So I asked Jack, what's a play and stay program? He said, that's where we put hotels together with gaming. So I asked Jack, how many hotels you got? He said, we don't have any. Well, how many hotel rooms do you have? Well, we don't have any. But you wanted to put together a play and stay program. That's correct. So I go back and I talk to my boss. I tell him all about it. He laughs at me. He said, get out of here. An Indian casino in Minnesota? That would never work. Guess he was wrong on that one. I go back, pretty dejected. I call up Jack. And with all the respect that he deserved, I said, Jack, we can't do it right now. The timing, not very good. Maybe someday. 4 months later, I'm out of a job. I got 3 young kids, a stay-at-home wife, and no job. I am absolutely scared to death. Have you ever been in that situation? You know the feeling. What do? You grab a newspaper, start looking for a job. Yeah, that's how we did it back then. Grab the newspaper, start looking for a job. What do I see in the long end? Great, looking for an employee. I called up and I asked for Jack. He answered the phone. He remembered me. And I am absolutely convinced to this day the reason he remembered me is because of the respect that I showed him. He invited me in for a job interview. That same day, I had a job interview with Carlson Travel. I left the house that day. I told my wife, either one of them offer me a job, I'm taking it. Get home about 5 o'clock that night, my wife asked me how it went. I said, they both offered me a job. She said, great. When do you start with Carlson? I said, I didn't take that job. I took the Grand Casino job. She said, you did what? I said, I promised you. 6 months, I'll get a real job. How well has that worked for me for 29 years? It was my job to put together a play and stay program with no hotel room. So at that point, we had one casino. It was an 18,000 square foot casino around Mille Lacs. And I went around about a 40-mile radius, and I met with every hotel, motel that had at least 7 rooms. And because of a solid foundation, we were able to put together a program where they would allocate me seats on what's called a free-cell. And they give me X number of rooms on every date. And they sold them to me at half a rack rate. Rack is the same as retail. So if the room costs $100, they'd sell it to us for $50. And we had a free sale for up to 30 days out. If somebody wanted to book a room at 10 days out, they'd still sell it to us at that half rack rate. That only happened because of the friendships, relationships, partnerships that were established on a solid foundation. In 1998, my boss came to me and says, I'd like you to oversee our convention sales program. I didn't know anything about convention sales. It was way out my comfort level. I did no sales. I didn't know how to build relationships. So I started meeting with meeting planners, people that put together trade shows, conventions, and meetings. Most of those people, 20 years later, Grand Casino is still working with them. That's done because of a solid foundation. Then in the early 2000s, we had a whole different problem. Some of you maybe remember this. Governor Pawlenty wanted to start state-run casino. It didn't look like it was going to be a good deal for us because every casino, with the exception of one, is outstate Minnesota. And what we knew is if Governor Pawlenty was successful, he wouldn't put them in Mille Lacs or Hinckley, Morton. He'd put them in St. Cloud, Duluth, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, all the big cities. It would have been devastating to us. Our analyst said if that would have happened, it would have cost us 50% of our revenues and probably at least 50% of the jobs in those markets. And every one of those jobs are critical to those small communities for jobs, economic development. So I got the short straw. I was told to go out and figure out how we could become the #1 chamber of choice if Governor Pawlenty was successful in that. I didn't have a clue how to do that. But what I did know is the importance of chambers of commerce, especially when times are tough. Now, chambers of commerce, as many of us know, usually work within about a 30, 40-mile radius of their community. I was 90 miles away. I worked for an Indian casino. Some people didn't like us. Some people didn't like gaming. Here I am, this guy coming in from 90 miles away to join a chamber of commerce. And I'll never forget my first day. I walked in, I was scared to death. It was so far outside my comfort zone. I walked in, I walked right up to the chamber president, introduced myself, told her who I was, who I worked for. Then I went to sit at a table. Walked around the table, introduced myself to everyone, told them who I was, who I worked for. Second meeting, a week or so later, I come in, do the same thing. I go up and shake hands with the chamber president. I reminded her who I was, who I worked for. I saw some of the same people from the first meeting, and guess what? They were sitting together again. I went and said hi to them, reintroduced myself to them, who I was, who I worked for, and it would have been so much easier to sit with them because I already knew them. But I didn't. I went to a new table, making new friendships, new relationships. Third meeting, same thing. Walked in, shook hands with the chamber president, reminded her who I was, who I worked for. Saw some of the people from the first meeting, again, sitting together. Second meeting, sitting together. Shook hands, said hi to all of them. Went to a new table. That's how you build relationships. That's how you do friendships. And they all revolve into partnerships. A few months later, I was asked to go on the board of directors. Board of directors. Motion this, second that. Way outside my comfort level. I didn't want to do it. But I knew it was important for building my ship. Before I knew it, I was members of 12 chambers of commerce on 5 boards at the same time, building ships. And I learned probably one of the best lessons of my life. That's not to prejudge who might make a good partner. I was sitting next to a guy at a board meeting, really nice guy. I just thought, there's not going to be any kind of relationship here. He had a pair of blue jeans on, denim shirts, and I'm thinking, okay, he's not a casino kind of lover. So I But I got to know him. We became friends. We built a relationship. One day he came up to me, he said, Bobby, he says, we got the best product in the state of Minnesota. We got Honeycrisp apples. We think it'd make a great promotion for Grand Casino. Would you be willing to buy them for promotion? 3 years in a row, we bought 9,000 half-pick bags of apples. Because I didn't prejudge who's going to make a good partner. And that's what we need to do, especially nowadays when things are so tough. Build those friendships, those relationships, those partnerships. They're all so very, very critical. A couple of years later, he came to me and said, Bob, he said, we're trying to raise money to fight cancer. Would Grand Casino be willing to sponsor our tennis tournament? And we did. So it went full circle, friendships, relationships, partnerships, and sponsorships. Now today I've been spending an enormous amount of time talking about relationships outside your company. Equally important inside your company. Most of you probably don't know who this gentleman is. His name is Connor Cook. He played football for Michigan State. He graduated in 2016, and he was going into the NFL draft. He had all the attributes of a great athlete. Tall, strong arm, fast. Everybody projected him first round. Some projected him top 10, some even top 5. Millions of dollars for this young man. Connor Cook was drafted last in the 4th round. People couldn't understand. How can that be? How can he be drafted with all those physical attributes? He drafted last in the 4th round. So these so-called experts went and met with his teammates and his coaches. Every single teammate said the same thing. Connor Cook was unable to build a relationship with his team. Connor Cook was unable to build a relationship with his front line. How can you have teamwork if you don't have a relationship with the people you work with? Now, as you see, all these ships kind of come into play. A new ship comes into play. That's leadership. Leadership in your church, leadership in your schools, leadership in your chambers, leadership in your company. In times like this, when things are so difficult, so hard, get all your ships going in the same direction. It's so much more powerful. Build those friendships, those relationships, those partnerships. The ones you have, lean on them. Get help. That's the only way we're going to make it through this. As a company, you can work with your friends, your relationships, and your partners. I build ships. I build friendships, relationships, partnerships, sponsorships, and leadership. There's a ship waiting to dock, but I'm not letting them in. That's hardship. It's just not going to happen. Times are tough right now, but we can make it through it. We all work together and we all rely on our friendships, our relationships, and our partnerships. I want to thank everybody for spending the last 30 minutes with me, and hopefully we'll see you all very soon.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. That was very well done. I've heard Bob speak several times. Prior to introducing Sarah Becker, I just want to comment a little bit on Bob and his background as a public speaker. He represents a network of about a dozen speakers, and he's doing a lot of public speaking these days after leaving Grand Casino Hinckley and Grand Casino Mille Lacs. So if you're interested in engaging Bob in any of your company functions as you sort of enter this new frontier, I think now more than ever, Bob's message of partnerships, friendships, relationships, sponsorships, and leaderships is extremely relevant. So thank you again to Bob for being here today. It's a great message. As I said, I've heard it several times, and it's awesome. So as we transition into Sarah Becker, Sarah's a fellow board member here at the I-94 West Chamber of Commerce. And Sarah's going to speak a little bit today about back to basics and how some of what Bob has been talking about can be applied to your own organization. Sarah's got a great business, clear, simple business that she's out talking to businesses large and small on a daily basis. So with that, I'd like to introduce Sarah Becker. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Greg. And since I'm about 2 feet shorter than these two, we are now lowering the desk so that you don't only see my forehead, although I didn't think that that was that bad of a thing if you only saw my forehead. But Greg and Bob vetoed me on that. So yeah, Bob talked a lot about the importance of building ships. So he was talking about friendships, relationships, partnerships, and sponsorships. And so a lot of that was talking externally. So now I'd like to talk about the importance of building a support system for all these ships within an organization and building ships within your organization. So to continue with the ship metaphor, because Bob gave me a great metaphor, thanks Bob, we're going to talk about the support system as the undercurrent. So what kind of undercurrents are you sailing your ship into? Are your ships in peaceful, easy flowing waters, or are they in dangerous waters that threaten shipwreck? So we all want peaceful, easy flowing waters, but how many of us are truly aware of and prioritizing what it takes to create them within our organization? So research shows that there are 6 foundational elements to creating internal waters that thrive. These elements are stability, connection, trust and influence, boundaries, fairness, and innovation. With these in place, a business can soar. Like truly the sky is the limit. And you may be thinking, I've heard these words before, they're not new concepts. And they aren't. All of these have been buzzwords within organizations for quite some time. So there's nothing surprising about them. I didn't invent this crazy, elaborate system that has all these words that I made up. They're very common words. And organizations have been focused on their people and culture more and more lately, which I greatly appreciate. But then it also confuses me because and I'm sure many of you, have experienced business environments that are stressful, demanding, frustrating, and painful. So much so that many of us think that this is the norm. We think that a business environment that is truly happy, like one that Bob was in, where he never worked a day, but we think that those are unicorns, rainbows, unobtainable magical places. But I'm here to tell you that this is not the case, because I have actually experienced one of these beautiful environments before, so it can actually exist. And I think it's very important that all of our businesses really strive for this non-magical, wonderful place. So this real experience was at Target Corporation on a little team within the BSS department. And no, that's not the BS department. So everyone knows that corporations love their acronyms. And we were lucky enough to have BSS as ours, luckily 2 S's, and that stood for Business Systems Services. So the team consisted of myself, my manager, and 2 other individuals, Melanie and Kathleen, 2 women who had been at Target for 30 plus years. They were an amazing team. We were an amazing team. I still get chills and smile every time that I think of them and how we work together. And the reason we were so amazing was not because we were the brightest and the best that Target has to offer. Target got a lot of top talent within our area, but we were the best because we worked together in a way that I had never experienced before. And it was really the little things. So for instance, we took the time to value each other and understand each other's strengths. And rather than being threatened by them, we leveraged them to their fullest. So for example, my team quickly learned that my strength is solving problems and automating processes, essentially making life easier for everyone. So when there was a problem to be solved, my team would ask me, how much time do you need? And what can we take off your plate to give you that time? If a project fell into an area of someone else's strength, we would do the same for them. We supported each other always. It wasn't a competition. This was also one of the first teams I was on where mistakes were acceptable. Not just on the surface and in theory, but they were truly acceptable to make mistakes. So an example of this. So I once didn't follow my own how-to guide, which I don't advise, but I created an account with the wrong number, which apparently, have you guys been in accounting before? Apparently that's a big deal.
Not a good thing.
Yeah, not a good thing for an account to be in the wrong number. I now know that this is very important. But I had been on many teams before where you were unsure if you should bring up a mistake that you made. You would always think, maybe if I don't say anything, no one will notice and I won't get into trouble. But not here. not with Melanie and Kathleen. Mistakes were not used as an opportunity to bring each other down. They were used as an opportunity to collaborate, solve the problem, possibly update the process to avoid the same mistake in the future. That's actually how I learned all my process stuff, was making mistakes and then finding ways to not make them again. But then we move on, and it was as simple as that. Another great part about this team was that our leader trusted us immensely, so much so that he essentially stepped aside and let us have control and influence over how we completed our day-to-day tasks. He was there for us when we had questions and worked with us on our development. However, as far as the day-to-day stuff went, he did his thing and we did ours. Within this team, we also got to know each other socially. I remember one of the first Fridays that I was on the team, Melanie came over to my cube and started chatting. Like just chatting, just to chat, just to get to know me. And being an introvert like Bob, I thought it was kind of weird, maybe a little uncomfortable at first, but like, all right, I'll get outside of my comfort zone. And we had a conversation. And I hadn't had a conversation like this in any of my previous roles. For the most part, we would all come in, do our work, and get out. We would have conversations in passing, but rarely sat down just to chat. But that's what Melanie did that Friday and many Fridays after that. And she was, 30-ish years older than me. You wouldn't think that we would have anything in common, but we got to know each other so well. And I'm so thankful for her for doing that, because her interest in me as a person brought our team much, much closer together. All of this created an environment of respect, trust, stability, connection, and fairness, as well as a boatload of innovation. We were constantly improving and innovating. And the funny thing is, according to many outsiders, Melanie and Kathleen were resistant to change. You see, they were both older, in their 50s, and had been at Target for 30 plus years. So the stereotype of being resistant to change followed them. And it was something I never saw while I was on a team with them. We, which included them, were constantly changing, updating the ways we got our work done. So watch out for and be aware of what stereotypes you're holding. Just because someone has been there for 30 plus years does not mean that they're resistant to change. Now, on the flip side, I've also experienced the opposite, which was an incredibly painful and terrible experience. Let me tell you about that fun. So at this organization, there were a lot of good people who every day came in to do their best work. And they were good at their work. They always strive to do well and do things right. However, no matter how hard they tried, they constantly felt as if they were taking 2 steps forward and 10 steps back, as if they were continuously cleaning up a mess. One of the reasons for this was because there was a ton of inaccurate accountability and misdirected blame. Many people were being held accountable for their jobs as well as for others' jobs, while those other people were not being held accountable to anything. You've been there, Bob? Been there before? Frustrating.
Many times.
Yeah. So an example of this, which just blew my mind, was that an email went out one day with a statement that said, person A, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Well, weeks went by and X, Y, and Z wasn't done. And it was a big deal. Like X, Y, and Z was a very important thing to get done. It not getting done caused huge issues and delayed output, not only affecting the organization within, but also the customers. However, when it came down to it, person A wasn't the one who was blamed for it. It was someone else on the email chain. So someone who wasn't even in the same department as person A, nor person A's manager. Person A was never held accountable for his mistake. And situations like this happened on a daily basis. It was beyond frustrating and confusing. Another frustration was that our time was not respected or valued. Meetings were constantly being hijacked. It was not uncommon for the leaders to bring up a topic that had nothing to do with the agenda of your meeting. Your meeting would get taken over. And it also wasn't too uncommon for your meeting to get canceled right before it started because something better came up. Now, this may seem like little things, when it comes down to it, it makes you feel as if your contribution to the organization is not valued and that you're not respected. And it's no fun. This was one of my favorites. There were also inconsistencies with decision making. So much so that decisions would be made, reversed, re-reversed, not remembered, and then reversed again. So much so that I bet I changed one process 6 times in the course of 1 month. Do you know how frustrating that is? Drives you crazy. And I wasted so much time, probably weeks, on just that one process. And we didn't get, it's again, that 2 steps forward, 10 steps back. We didn't get any further ahead. And then along with the crazy decision making, as you can imagine, the communication was also very inconsistent. Important decisions were being made up front during meetings. However, no one was relaying them back to the people impacted by those decisions. And I'm not sure if it was just because everyone assumed someone else was going to do it, or they just didn't want to do the work themselves. To say the least, it was a shit show. No bullshit. And I want to thank Bob for giving me that opportunity to use that in my presentation. I didn't swear, he said shit show. So anyways, I felt incredibly disrespected while I was working there. I hated that projects weren't being completed on time, or sometimes weren't even being completed at all. Customers were starting to get mad, vendors were frustrated. I wanted to make a difference, as well as the vast majority of the people within that organization wanted to make a difference. However, the system and environment was set up for us to fail. It was unfair and frustrating. There was an immense amount of finger pointing and blame. There was no moving forward. The best we could do was man the ship and hope that we didn't sink. So has anyone experienced any of these environments before? You can, I can find the chat. I'm going to send this computer around so I know the chat's in there. So if you can, within the chat, just mention if you have experience with situation A, or if you've had experience with situation B. So A was kind of that target, beautiful, magical place, and situation B was the other place that wasn't quite as much fun. See if anyone wants to participate. Or I can just keep going. All right, so the moral of the story is that undercurrents matter. They matter for our business and for our people. The way people feel every day matters. It impacts them physically, and it impacts organizations financially. And frankly, it just matters because people matter. Their experiences matter, their health and feelings matter. And the reality is a company is not just somewhere people go to work. The company you work for is part of your life. It's the truth. And it carries a huge responsibility for business leaders, a responsibility that I don't believe many have been taking seriously. From my observations, a lot of employees feel as if they are being treated more like machines than actual people. They are numbers, minions. They're there to do the bidding of the business owners or the business leaders. They're to make the organization money, and that's it. This is very dehumanizing, and we deserve better. Not only is this dehumanizing, but it also leads to an immense amount of feelings of hopelessness, despair, and ultimately stress. Something we have enough of in our world today, and something that our business world needs to stop creating more of. And yes, we are creating more of it. But did you know, research estimates work stress as the fifth leading cause of death in the U.S., current COVID situation aside. So according to Jeffrey Pfeffer, Stanford professor and author of Dying for a Paycheck, in total, workplace environments in the United States may be responsible for 120,000 excess deaths per year. Now that's a big deal. With the numbers being that high, the fifth leading cause of death, that means that it isn't the other guys doing all the bad stuff. It means that it is happening right here in our backyard. We all need to take ownership of work stress, because with ownership comes change, and with change comes an enhancement to our little corner of the world. We can not ignore this anymore. And I'm not only speaking to you, business leaders, I'm also speaking to myself. I'm taking responsibility and creating valuable actions towards safe, secure, and loving environments for people to work in every day. My little something is the Back to Basics Index. So the Back to Basics Index helps organizations understand how their employees are truly feeling when they are sitting at their desk and dig deep into the challenges and problems an organization might be experiencing. It points to where organizations can implement positive solutions to help them improve on both the people and process side. We need to get back to basics. And I think Bob might have even mentioned that in his presentation in some way, but for everyone's sake. We need to measure how our organizations are doing in regards to these 6 foundational elements. We need to measure the levels of our undercurrents. Where are your undercurrents currently at? Are your undercurrents stormy, like my second example, or calm, like my team at Target? We can find out. So if you want to learn more about this index, reach out to me. I would love to chat. And thank you, Greg, and the I-94 Chamber for giving me this opportunity to present.
Thank you, Sarah. Great job. That was very well done. I think I need to raise the podium back up. Before we wrap up, just got a couple of, I got a question. If anyone's interested in some free Valley Fair tickets, stick around, I'll give you the details on that. But as you can see on the slide here that we're sharing, both Bob's contact information as well as Sarah's contact information is available for you to reach out to them personally and connect. One of the things we're really focused on here with the Chamber is taking this moment in time and connecting people. I really feel like over the past 30 days, especially as we're getting back to business, people are excited. People want to be connected. They want to take their partnerships, relationships, and friendships and apply them to some of the things Sarah mentioned in her daily business. And again, I think the message is more important now than it ever has been. So thank you to both Bob and Sarah for being with us today. And thanks to our friends at Farmer State Bake of Hamel for helping make this possible today. They're a title sponsor of the Chamber of Commerce. And we also have our friends at Valley Fair. Wendy Merilla is a member, and we've got a couple of Valley Fair tickets. If anyone that's on the Zoom meeting today is interested in those, drop a mention in the chat, and we'll draw one random person that's on the Zoom today to pick up a couple of tickets to Valley Fair. I think they're planning on opening hopefully sometime in July. So we've got a lot of things happening in the business world. We thank you for being here today, and please leave any comments or questions that you might have again for Bob or Sarah in the comments section. And again, their contact information is available for you to reach out to them directly. So thanks for being with us, and have a great rest of your day.